Hi, welcome to Control Talk Now, your Smart Buildings video casting podcast for the week ending July 10th, 2016. My name is Eric Stromquist, and we talk all things smart building controls. And I have got the best co-host. You've got the best co-host in the biz. We got the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Man, Kenny, welcome to the show, big dog.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. And I'll tell you what, it's been a lot of fun. We've had just an amazing week gone by, and this podcast is growing in numbers and people, and we just got a heck of a show coming, and along with a lot of great posts. I mean, nothing's stopping in our industry. We've got acquisitions to talk about. We've got Ken St. Clair's July edition automated buildings to talk about, and we've got great products being released from all our vendors. So we better jump into this thing with both feet. And
let's do. But real quick before we get, let's hit our sponsors, our platinum sponsors that we're going to talk about on the show this week. Real quick, it is EasyIO, Mad Mike Marston. Mike has always been the first person to step up and say I'll be a sponsor. He and Eugene Mazzo from DG Logic. We'll get back to DG Logic a little bit later, but our official sponsors this week for Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings video casting podcast, are Mike Marston and the team at EasyIO. They call it easy for a reason. And Neptronics. Luis Melgaro and the team up there make great valves, actuators, and equipment. So we will put links in the show notes for you to check them out. But we appreciate those guys. Without companies like them willing to step up and be sponsors for the Control Trends Awards, they just wouldn't happen. So very, very special thanks to them.
Well said, Eric. And we do. We got a great show coming up in January 29th, 2017. We have more movement in that direction. We have some coordination that we're doing. Here we are just in July, but 6 months from now, we're going to have the most spectacular industry trade show event for BAS and HVAC. It's going to be at the Sunday before HR show. So just throw a quick plug in there. So without the sponsors, that's not possible. So thank you very much.
It's going to be a Hollywood moment. We're giving you plenty of notice now because you can start working out now, because when you're walking the red carpet with the models that we'll have, you want to be looking your best. And let me tell you something, Kenny. You and I have been to Vegas several times. I think this is going to be probably our highest rating models because we got a lot to choose from out there, right? So work out now because we will have video cameras and you will want to look good. And also practice your drinking because there'll be a full open bar. And one of these, the last show, every year we try to get better at this. But one of the things that people really like was they had about 45 minutes of open bar, a place to catch up with everybody in the industry. So it's going to be spectacular. We got some tricks up our sleeves, and every year we endeavor to make that better. But again, thanks to Neptronics, EasyIO, and the rest of our platinum sponsors for making that happen. So, all right, big dog, let's roll into it because we got a couple great interviews, and let's get through the business so we can get to the interviews.
All right, Nick. Well, first up, we have new products from around the globe. Forest Rock at the 2016 Niagara Summit, and this is just another testimony of how important the Niagara Summit was. How it's a place, it's a very important venue to learn about new products from around the world and getting them introduced to the North American market. This is a software tool that automatically collects and analyzes all forms of energy consumption. It has a very appealing visual graphic and charts that guarantee a well-ordered and easy understood presentation of your building information.
Well, I got to tell you something, Kenny. I'm a pretty simple man when it gets down to it. I'm attracted by bright, shiny objects. And we're walking around the floor at the Niagara Summit and sort of just seeing different stuff. But these graphics in the background, they just kept attracting me. They were beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's to the point kind of like when I was younger and would be at a bar and there'd be some really good looking girl at the bar. You'd walk by several times and eventually you get up the courage to come up and go, so what are you all about? And I tell you what, when we did that, we met Michael Kirkland from Forest Rock, and he was kind enough to do a presentation for us. And I tell you what, these guys have some beautiful graphics, Kenny. I was impressed. I think you were impressed. And
sure.
So that was that.
Oh, it was and again, Niagara Summit 2016 was a heck of an event. I think that we're going to be tailoring off on that coverage and moving to complete the Realcomm IBComm in the very near future. But we keep talking about calendars, and we have 2 or 3 calendar reminders because even though it's been a very busy first 6 months of the year, 2016 has just been incredible. Every month there's been a major venue, a major episode, some important revelations of our industry. But the mark your calendar and get smart about water waste post was just another one of the, you've got to really stay on your toes, and we're helping our community by putting these posts up there. So if you are interested, or this one here is about smart water and waste, about being smart about water and waste, and how to save money and energy as it's applied to what is becoming one of the most important utilities, and that's water. I don't think people understand just how critical it is, and how the use of water is about 50% of it's wasted. So it's a very good prelude, good post, and we have a water seminar coming up July 15th, Friday, from 12:30 to 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Standard Time.
So is this kind of like Ken's calendar? Is this like part of the Ken's calendar thing, man? Is that being reborn here?
I'm trying my best because, like you said, we're getting so many people coming to Control Trends looking for that easy venue of information. So, again, we offer the opportunity to please give us the information, send us to an email, make us aware of your event, and we will post it under Ken's calendar. I got the basic template done, so now I've got July, August, September, October, not much in November, December. A couple of things happened in January already. So we're already getting some information. We appreciate all the sources that we get it from: Automated Buildings, Engineered Systems, CABA. Everybody has some good calendars, but they don't have everything. So we're trying to take it to the next level, but it's not possible without the support and contributions of the Control Trends community.
Well, absolutely, Kenny. And this is Jones Lang LaSalle, and our friend Darlene Pope, who used to be with SmartCore, is now part of Jones Lang LaSalle. Hi, Darlene. Has you're putting this together, and if I went on the website, Kenny, they got just very, very informative webinars, so you definitely want to check those out. It's pretty darn amazing. So you can definitely see it live and participate, ask questions. If you don't do that, you can always go back and check them out. But our friend Tom Shurtleff, Building Automation, IntelligentBuildings.com, one of the really bright guys. Fred Gordy works for them. Sort of tipped us off, and it makes sense. He thinks water is the next big frontier in terms of managing energy. And if you think about it, in most places, you go to the store, a gallon of water costs as much, if not more, than a gallon of gas. So water is a commodity we don't talk a lot about, but I think really smart people and smart buildings are going to find a way to understand and manage that as an asset. I think there's huge opportunities for savings there. And I think this is a great place to sort of find out what your options are. So encourage you to check that out.
All right, Eric. Next up, we had a great live stream event that took place in Stromquist. We had automation integrated. I did watch that and was able to comment. It was time very well spent because these guys have really got some stuff up their sleeve. Why don't you tell us a little bit about automation integrated in your live stream?
Well, I tell you what, you and I had the opportunity to get to know Jeff Haupt from Automation Integrated out at Realcomm IBECon, and what a cool guy he is, right? So Automation Integrated was one of the co-winners of the 2016 Integrator of the World, Control Trends Integrator of the Year, Systems Integrator. And I tell you what, guys like Jeff, Ted from Hepta Systems, they really sort of redefine what a master systems integrator is. And I think Jeff is one of these guys that he's always looking ahead, and he's sort of seeing the role of a systems integrator change. So they basically developed this piece of software that is going to allow you to lower your cost to serve and at the same time create more value for your customers in such a way that you can have an ongoing revenue stream. So it's a cool product. I've tried to do it justice talking about it, but if you were lucky enough to see this live, you get a feel for it. Now, we did record it, so we will upload that and have that posted next week on Control Trends.
Well, I just wanted to say, too, because I want to give these guys a strong plug because they really and truly get it. Automation Integrated offers a free Glyph Niagara backup service. This is available to all systems integrators and people that are familiar with the Niagara environment. The API, let's just say that what these guys are doing is that they are really good at what they do. And they're not just, it's just not HVAC and building automation. This is guys, they can do access control, CCTV, and they're offering a tool. So this Glyph is automated, integrated, customizable IoT cloud framework. It's called a Glyph, and it provides infrastructure, tool services, and user interfaces, which is everything you need from the first mile to the last mile. Glyph empowers the user to create sophisticated, connected solutions that are scalable, reliable, and secure. Blue Forge is a web application built on the Glyph, and you got to go to the website. You got to watch the presentation. And another thing that Automation Integrated does is in this integrity economy, which we've talked about before, they can offer you services that you can't get locally. If you don't have it within your organization and you need assistance in getting something done, whether it's high-level visualization, graphics, and integration that's beyond your capabilities, these guys offer a service, and they're straight-up guys. They're out of Oklahoma City, but they're global, and they can come in, they can help an organization tie in that last 100 yards of a project to get off the job, get paid, and make that punch list go away.
Absolutely. And Jeff is, I think he's the guy who turned us onto the phrase, we're in the integrity economy right now, basically meaning if you work with somebody else, you definitely got to protect that relationship and not go around them. And so, Kenny, we will have a link in the show notes. If you want to see more information from those guys directly, you can just click on the link below in the show notes and you'll get that. And we'll post that link again next week when we post the video a video recording of that demonstration. But those guys did a fantastic job, Kenny. We had people from all around the world that were asking questions. So it is very, very cool. And we'll rock and roll some more with that. So, buddy, what we got something else from Ken's calendar coming up next? No, wait a minute. Big news. Big news.
Very big news.
Tell us about the big news, man.
Well, we're really excited for DG Logic, Eugene Mazzo and his team out there, Dennis's and Arthur and everything. They've been working real hard, and I think they finally hit pay dirt because DG Logic was purchased by Acuity Brands, AYA. And Acuity is a very, very large company, global in scope. They recently bought Distech, and now they have DG Logic as part of their product showcase. DG Logic was basically, they are the kings of data visualization, data analytics is part of their foundation, their platform. But now they've been bought out by Acuity Brands. Congratulations. We're really excited for Eugene and the guys, and we hope it's everything you expected it to be. And we wish you all the best in the future. So well done, DG Logic.
Oh, yeah. Really happy for those guys. Eugene has always been one of the first guys that stepped up and said, we'll be a sponsor for the Control Trends Awards. These are cool guys. They work hard. They're cool. We call them the Men in Black. So very, very, very happy for them. And listen, I tell you what, Kenny, I'm looking down here. We got Ken Sinclair is teed up and ready to rock and roll with us. So I'd love to, let's bring Ken on. We're going to talk about the July issue, but at some point in time during the interview, Kenny, let's ask him about his thoughts on the purchase of DG Logic by Acuity. So with that, how about introducing Ken Sinclair?
Eric, I'd love to. Our next guest is Ken Sinclair, the owner-editor of AutomatedBuildings.com. And Ken is, we're going to talk about Ken's July theme, which is performance software evolving with self-machine learning. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hey, Ken, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks a lot, guys. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, so how are things up in Canada today?
Actually, the sun just started to come out. You can see I'm starting to get lighter and lighter and lighter as the sun is streaming in on my left here.
Yeah. Well, looks good, buddy. Looks good. Well, tell us about the July issue. It's hits the street for our viewers and listeners out there. Ken Sinclair, AutomatedBuildings.com, a.k.a. Auto, sort of has his hand on the pulse of building automation controls. And if you haven't checked the July issue out, you should. So, Ken, give us the 401 on the July issue.
Okay, great. So we called it Performance Software Evolves with Self-Learning. And I kind of like that word performance software because we even tried to provide a little bit of a definition of what that might mean. And that's come from Alan McHale. Always have trouble with that word. Memory? Gee whiz. We'll have to edit that. Anyway, they kind of came up with that term, and they've actually have been tracking this as a market, and it's becoming a very significant market, and a lot of us are, in one way or another, part of that market. So that's fairly interesting. And then, of course, the other trend within the trend is that everyone's heading towards self-learning.
Yeah, well, so how would you define self-learning? Is that aka artificial intelligence, or what's your definition of self-learning?
Well, we even attempt to try and define that. I think you were at IBCon, and actually that was a good fun. And thank you very much for all your support, helping helping cover IBCon. It was such an amazing event with so many things going on that it certainly took the power of control trends, automated buildings, and building context to try and even capture a portion of what was going on. So it was good that the media team got together and made that happen. But the keynote speaker talking about how computers were able to beat the Go Master, and how they did that was basically analyzing big data and replicating news. So rather than artificial intelligence, which attempts to try and make it think, I think self-learning can be just trying to make sense of big data and simply find the patterns within big data and learn how it can do a better job understanding better what's going on. So I think that's my simple definition. I have to make simple definitions of everything because I'm a pretty simple person.
Well, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, Ken. And I think what makes artificial intelligence kind of interesting is it does not have the same cognitive biases that we have as human beings, right? What I mean by cognitive biases is, as humans, we tend to see what we believe. And that is probably one of the advantages of being a human versus a machine. But at the same time, without the cognitive biases, I think they see more clearly are able to come up with new solutions. And I think the other thing, you turned us into a guy, Igor Mezic, with Echolyrhythm, and he's actually got a self-learning algorithm. So if I'm understanding that correctly, he just throws in a bunch of variables, and then the artificial intelligence sort of figures out the relationships between the variables. So it might look for connections that we as humans might not even think to look for.
Great, yeah. And in their article, it's on our site this month. In addition to Igor, the whole team is exposed, and it's not just Igor. There's a whole team of folks that are supporting that thinking. The article is called "Infusing Machine Learning with Artificial Intelligence," and again, it is learning. And actually, Brad, your young gun up here in Vancouver is working with them, and they've got a couple of pilot projects that they're attempting to get some real experience with this. So I'm excited to see how that rolls out.
Ken, I want to applaud all the effort that you put into the aggregation of this information. Like, our introduction for your July issue was that you came fresh off the trails of Silicon Valley. But what you're doing is by collecting these things, and like you said, keeping things simple, is that the compilation of information that you get from Realcomm is summed up very well in your editorial. But like to get to the bottom of it, what the Echolyrhythm does, there's one sentence in here that I think I finally understand what they do, and it was great to read it. It said that the software combines several key elements of artificial intelligence with machine learning to rapidly and automatically identify and classify building data with exceptional accuracy, similar to the metadata embedded in communication example described above. Each time a building and its underlying dynamic can be completely described by triple sets of corresponding magnitude. Now, that was kind of heads up stuff. But then what they're saying is there's three variables similar to volume, that is the height of oscillation, similar to pitch, that is the time scale of the oscillation, and the phase, similar to the timing. This is the starting point for the alignment of the two time sets of data. Now, this is the result of spectral pattern, which provides automatically measurable and classifiable signature of behavior. So this was that thing, Eric, that the Dr. Igor Mezic told us that he could apply that to any domain and bring up intelligent learning. So I thought that great job, Ken. And there's so much to cover in your July edition. We also have to take time to talk about that the new BCEM that you mentioned in the British Columbia Institute of Technology. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we've been working with our local British Columbia Institute of Technology, and I got to credit SES Consulting. They've been spearheading that project and working directly with the folks over there. I've thrown in my support for how useful I can be, which is of some use because I'm able to connect them to some of our local resources and some of our far away resources. But I think it's a pattern that I'd like to suggest that everybody listening to Control Trends do is go into your local town and stop complaining about not having people to hire, and put a program in place that would create people that you would like to hire. Actually, the other one that came out of that is when I was at the CABA convention in San Diego, I got talking to the guy at the college in Toronto, and they have a course similar to this. And he said an actual bidding war broke out when the students graduated. Never heard of. Not only did they get jobs, they were being wooed at do I take this job or that job, and then all of a sudden somebody upped their ante to make them come work for them. So it was interesting. There's definitely a demand. So I think we need to, as an industry, we've got to build that in our hometown. So whatever that means, get at it, folks.
Well, yeah, Ken, just so you know, we had some youngsters on about a week or so ago, and we let them know in no uncertain terms that you were the leader of the BACnet pack, aka you are the Frank Sinatra of our industry. So we continue to talk about the need to bring young talent into the industry as well as pass on the tribal knowledge. And I think, Ken, your publication does a great job of that. We're endeavoring to do that as well. And people like Paul Oswell just do a great job. Well, real quick, our girl Therese Sullivan, did a really nice job in the July issue of sort of summing up Real-Time Ibicon. So I encourage our listeners and viewers to check that article out. But Ken, sort of getting away from the conference for a couple of weeks, is there anything that's sort of bubbling up to the surface that sort of caught your attention, sort of in retrospect at the conference?
Just before we do that, I just put one more plug in for Therese. Is at the conference, she brought her son, which I thought was neat, and so he went to a lot of the sessions, and he was actually impressed with all the things we're doing. I think the other thing that's happened to us all is our industry used to be boring, and we had pneumatic tubes and stuff like that out of our ears, and we were pretty strange looking folks, but now we're, with all of this IT and connectivity, we actually look quite exciting, as there was drones and robots and all kinds of things moving around the convention. So I think we're an easier sell than we used to be. So,
well, I got to tell you sort of a funny story real quick, Kenny, before you ask the question. So we had a really sharp system integrator in our shop, Ken, Otto and Ken. I mean, super bright, had some young guys there, and they were kind of walking around the counter, and the old guy is showing the young guy the different, he picks this stuff up. What is this? It was pneumatic fittings and pneumatic tubing, and we had all the different pneumatic thermostats out, and the young guns were just totally blown away by that. They thought that was kind of they'd never heard or seen of anything. You mean you're controlling data with air? It was kind of a funny. So maybe we'll go retro controls again, and things like pneumatics will come back in vogue.
Yeah. Don't I tell them about a Johnson fluidic controller, the first analog device? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So back to what kind of rolled out of Ibicon that we didn't put into either our report, your report, or Teresa's report. Got a good chance to catch up with J2 and Scott Mensch, and he's written us a great article. And some of the stuff he's doing with Haystack and metadata tagging is just amazing. The way they build their systems, and they basically have reduced engineering. And in another way, that's another self-learning process. And what he points out in the article is the significance of having that standard. Once you have that standard and you support it, then you can rapidly build this stuff. So that's kind of interesting. And this edge analytics sensors, the whole concept also that rolled out of there is, just a few years ago, we were pushing all this data into the cloud, and basically all of the intelligence was in the cloud, and with lower cost computing in the field and memory almost for nothing, now the devices are getting doing all this analytics on the edge and making actual decisions and self-learning on the edge. So there's a rapid change there, and interesting devices. One of the devices I was looking at IBCon was basically doing people analytics and basically doing workflows. And it was a complete standalone device that you just mounted on the wall, and it just counted all these people, and you didn't even have, you could basically just access the data, and that all went into a web service. And it was more designed for retail to monitor traffic flows, but once you saw it, it made our minds kind of spin how we might use that in our industry. So this big pieces of other industries falling on top of us in the IT cloud, or somebody was calling it the fog, which I think is probably even a better term. So exciting stuff for sure.
Hey, Ken, what did you think about Scott Mensch's corollary? So we got Metcalfe's law, which is the number of devices, value equals the number of devices squared. And then we have Mensch's corollary, real value equals the number of devices squared divided by the mouse clicks to deploy. So that was some pretty clever work by Scott Mensch's part with regards to that. But Ken, I'm sorry, I'm off cue today. I apologize, but the thing I wanted to bring up next, Ken, was DG Logics and Acuity, and just the impact. We were talking about coming out of Realcomm, IBCon. After that incredible event, we have DG Logics was very well. Their booth at that show was very populated. Every time I went by, there were people getting in tune with DG Logics, their platform. Next thing we know, Acuity Brands buys out DG Logics. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, that is amazing. That one got me really flat-footed. It was actually Fritz that brought that to my attention. So I had no indication of that at all. So it's very interesting, this maybe the conglomeration of our leaders, innovation leaders, and getting purchased. I think it's an interesting trend. I think it always goes on. I mean, automated buildings has always been that kind of a place where these people come, they create their business, they get up to 10, 20, 30, $40 million a year. And once they do that, then these big companies just come in and buy them, and they know that the technologies they've developed are solid and desirable. But the idea of taking the cherry picking and taking great companies like Distech, and they're a strong lighting company to start with, it kind of creates a whole new breed of basically systems integration suppliers and services. So yes, interesting trend. I mean, these companies are going to become big enough to become annoying to the Johnsons, Honeywells, and Snyders.
Sure. Ken, you were saying that one of the advantages, though, of this big conglomeration taking the small niche companies and putting them into one portfolio is that it takes some of the guesswork out of it for users, and it'll enhance the rate of adoption, because now people will feel more secure dealing with a big company with deep pockets, and now they can go to one place and get everything they need instead of piecemealing it together.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece. I tell you what, I'm glad I'm in the news business, not in the consulting business like I used to be, or in the integration business, or in the supply of integration products like you guys are. All of those are very complicated spaces right now because of the dynamics. I mean, everything is just changing so fast. And for the folks that are just on the other side of the chasm waiting for this innovation to jump over, it's coming at them, and it's not crystal clear as to what
Well, no, it is a very sort of interesting deal because scale up, scale down. I mean, it seems like we're getting these dichotomies in our business, right? Enterprise edge seems to be a dichotomy, being big, being small, being able to offer a complete solution, or trying to be the best at a particular part of the solution seems to be another, trend that we're seeing. And I tell you what, I think it takes a really, really good company that's really got their head screwed on right to buy these different technologies, because part of what makes somebody like DG Logic, for example, great is their innovation and the fact that they're lean and they're mean and they're able to create on the fly, if you will, and meet the market's demand. Same thing with a company like Distech, right? So I think the challenge for some of these bigger companies is they try to buy the technology and bundle it up and offer a bundled solution. Is how do you keep that sort of creativity and that speed of innovation in place? Because obviously if you're buying these companies, you're making an investment. And the first thing you're trying to do is get your money back out of the investment and turn a profit on it, right? And trying to turn a profit and get your money back and buying something like that doesn't necessarily lead to the best decisions. At least that's been my experience over the years. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I think a very good point. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Well, yeah, I think that's the trick. Like you said, Ken, you summed it up very well. I mean, DG Logic was a premier, data visualization. They had a great share of the market, and they were growing. And then you have a company like Acuity that buys Distech, that was an amazing control company, still is, and they're global in scope. So now we have to see the synergies. Well, the synergies actually deliver that bundled product that you just mentioned, Eric. But again, the consequence, there always has to be consequences. You're going to see people merging marketing departments, merging accounting departments, because you can't have one for each product line. So therein lies the trick of the bureaucracy. Like Max Weber has said, you sustain the organization, but there's a consequence. You have to fit things in, and subsequently the innovation will suffer in most cases.
Right. No. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Acuity at all. I want to make real clear if anybody from Acuity is listening, but I think it's a challenge. And I think it has to be on the radar, because I think organizations that are really successful with innovation, and Kenny and Ken and Otto, we saw this out in Silicon Valley. I mean, those folks out there, they think differently, they walk differently, they eat differently, they drink differently. It's a different philosophy. And so I think that, and Ken Sinclair, maybe this is a trend we need to sort of begin to track and look at is, what are the keys to innovation and an innovative organization? And I think it gets more complex when you're bringing diverse companies together under one roof, so to speak. So, I have every confidence that the people at Acuity will be able to figure it out and get it done. But I think the old days, and I think this is really technology driven, guys. I think in the old days, you could buy a company and you had 15, 20 years to integrate it, right? It really didn't sort of matter because there wasn't that much innovation going on. You
left it alone. Yeah, you left it alone.
Yeah, you just left it alone, and things weren't changing so rapidly. So I think one of the new realities that organizations like Acuity are facing is how do you maintain that individuality and innovation strategies, and at the same time roll them in where you could get the efficiencies of synchronization. And I think that's going to be more of an art than a science. And I don't know. I bet there are probably books out there about that already. But
the other observation I've got is that with automated buildings over the years, I've got folks that have basically brought companies up, sold them, and brought up another company and sold that. They're on their third and fourth company. So basically, you have these innovators, entrepreneurs that are actually good at that. The problem is typically when the company is bought, the innovation leaders are usually tied into it for a few years, 1, 2, 3 years, or some darn thing like that. And then once they leave, the innovation tends to kind of slow down, and but it becomes more mainline. But you do bring up a very good point, is that the timeline that we used to have in the past is been greatly reduced.
Yeah, and I think mainline is the first kiss of death. When you just made a very telling statement, I think, which I think was very true, before when technology had moved so rapidly. You know, you would incorporate it, you had some time to get it together, then you mainlined it, which I'm interpreting as, well, you sort of kept it the same, right? You sucked the profits out at that point. And I think in this day and age, if that's the definition of mainline, you can't do that. I mean, you got to constantly be innovating and die, or you die, I think. So, but
well, guys, if you remember, like, look at the giant, we won't name any names, but they'll probably come out through the conversation, where they bought probably 8 to 10 control companies in America. They bought they bought Erie Controls, they bought Paragon, they bought, Barbara Coleman, Robert Shaw, and it just kept stacking it up. And like you just said there, Eric, they had that time to evolve, because I think eventually they brought that all together. And we'll just cut through the chaser. Schneider Electric put all those together now, and they finally have a seamless organization. But it took them probably, and you're aware as a distributor too, how long did it take them to really get where they took Andover and they took all of the, oh my God, they had like 12.
Well, it did. It was back when Inventus owned them, before Schneider bought Inventus. And I tell you what, I mean, it would be like they would change the brand name. We mentioned pneumatic thermostats earlier. They go from being a Barbara Coleman pneumatic stack of Robert Shaw, then they called them Inventus, then they called them CB. I mean, and that to me was just a marketing disaster. I mean, it was so damn confusing who you were dealing with and which company, and because all these were established brands that they bought, and then they just they totally butchered the brands. But I think to your point, Schneider has done a very good job of sort of righting that ship and keeping them under the Schneider brand. So the marketing piece of the conversation is a whole different piece of it, yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see if what Acuity does with the Distech brand and the DG Logic brand, and it'll all or will they try to incorporate it so now it's Acuity graphics and the Acuity controller, so that's going to be a fascinating piece. And will they market the same way? I mean, you and I both saw quite a bit of DG Logics, Kenny, and Ken, this gets back to the supply side. I mean, is Acuity going to come in and say, no, we're going through a whole different distribution network, so different channel?
Actually, the other piece of that, like, you're coming at it from a product point of view, but what the value is in a lot of these companies now is not the product, but it is the army of people that support the product. Let's take a look at something like the Distech network or the Delta network. I mean, that's what the people really bought, is all of a sudden you buy a global network of people who actually understand this product, and you can introduce new products through them. So that's kind of like really, really powerful. And I'm sure that that's what Acuity was looking at when they bought DG Logic is, wow, this is pretty amazing stuff. But what is even more amazing is the people who actually know how to use this stuff. And all of a sudden, if I can pick up 1,000 of them scattered all over the world, that is like tremendous value. So anyway, that's just another observation.
So awesome stuff. Well, listen, I tell you what, Ken, one last thing I wanted to point out was written up in your article talking about innovative people that are on the ball. Our friends at Haystack, you broke the news in the July issue. They've got their Haystack next meeting coming up. I think it's in next May in Tampa, Florida, if I'm not mistaken. But you can find all the facts on automatedbuildings.com. And anything else, Ken, before we wrap up here?
No, I don't think so. It's lots of changes, lots of things going on for sure. Never seem to have any trouble getting an issue full.
No, I hear you, buddy. I hear you. Well,
Sometimes
guess what?
It's just a little overwhelming for. Gotta be overwhelming for our readers because it's overwhelming for us writers.
Well, I tell you what, it's fascinating stuff. So as a teacher of mine once said, nothing's obvious to the uninformed. So if you're listening to this podcast or videocast, I applaud you for getting informed, because I think now it's more important than ever. The July issue is out, automatedbuildings.com. Check it out. You've been listening to Ken Sinclair, the man that makes it happen at automatedbuildings.com. But the person that really makes it happen, I think, is your wife, Jane.
He's the only one who actually reads the whole thing.
Well, we're big fans of Jane as well. Well, listen, hey, Ken, big fun out at Realcomm IBCon. We still got a ton of videos. We haven't even gotten, I think I got 250 gigs of different product videos and stuff like that. We're just getting those edited. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be posting those on Control Trends. And we'll get back with you next when the August issue hits the street, buddy.
Great.
Hey, man, that was great stuff from Ken. Always insightful. What do we have up next, Kenny?
Well, next up, we again, Control Trends keeps an eye on 2016 events with Ken's calendar. Eric, we finally got some good structure on how to present this, and we can add to it. So June's gone. June was an incredible month. There was so much activity. So it's an amazingly busy and productive year so far, but there are many, many more events on the horizon. We will continue to post information on events as we receive them and become aware of the event. Please note that the information is gathered from various sources, and times, dates, and locations may change or may have changed. Be sure to visit the appropriate website or contact the event coordinator to ensure you have the most up-to-date information.
Very, very cool. And our listeners and podcast listeners, just go to controltrends.org. You'll see that post there. Kenny actually does a great job with the show notes. So you'll just be able to click on a link and get right to that. So cool. Very well done, Kenny. What do we have up next?
Well, speaking of which, it's a deeper dive. ACI is again, they're taking full advantage of social media. They're really and truly employing all the resources out there. And Control Trends is one of the big venues to get information out to our Control Trends community and to the ACI customer base. But they're putting on a webinar. It's going to be July 20th, 2016 at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Brant Castbaum from ACI is going to do a deep dive into temperature sensors. He's a specialist. He's going to do an educational overview of ACI's temperature line. And they also have a bunch of how-to videos. So please visit ACI. Their website is work-ACI, and they have a tremendous amount of educational resources available for anybody interested on temperature, humidity, pressure sensors. So they've got a great resource library there. Please visit them and take our direct link off the Control Trends site. No,
absolutely can do that. And I think this is the second in the series, Kenny, that they're starting. Barry Flash Gordon did the first one a couple of weeks ago. We posted the information about it, but we also posted the video after the fact. So if you can't make this for some reason, don't worry, we will post it on Control Trends after the fact, so to speak. So live is always better, but if you can't make live, you always got the video thing. So.
Well said. Next up, Eric, we have Functional Devices takes BACnet integration one step further. The UPS kit, PSH550-UPS-BC, is now BACnet compatible. And I think this is, again, a great testimony to the innovation of Functional Devices. Even though they just make bread and butter components, relay in a box, I mean, my gosh, millions and millions sold, current sensors, millions sold, but these guys are not fighting or they're not going to be passed over. They're going to be part of every part of that building automation equation possible. And this is another opportunity for the building automation systems integrator to take even more steps to integrate. Now you can take down into the UPS level. You get some great information being served up using BACnet MSTP. Please look at the post and take a look at it, because I think for many people, this is just another just probably a better refinement of your integration. So congratulations to Functional Devices, staying ahead of technology, or staying abreast with technology. They are making their stuff more visible and less standalone. So great job to bring BACnet to bring their power control centers into the BACnet format.
Yeah, very, very good there, man. I tell you what, speaking of integrators and sort of having your hand on the pulse, we are thrilled to have our next guest, Kenny. I think this guy is just going to add a whole lot to the Control Trends community. He's got to be the coolest podcaster in the smart buildings control space. Tell our audience who we have on the show today, because I'm pumped up about it. What about you?
And let's just say that he is one of the top podcasters. He joins Eric Stromquist as one of the leading just guy that loves what he's doing and does it very well. His name is Mr. Phil Zito. He's the owner of Building Automation Monthly. And I just want to do a real quick introduction of who Phil Zito is. And I think almost everybody out there, if you're in this business at one time or another, has come across one of Phil's articles. He's been published in every major periodical in our business and automatedbuildings.com. We've already covered him in Control Trends, but Phil's he's been in the smart building space since 2007 and has worked on almost every BAS system on the market. He's been a service technician, operations manager, a sales development engineer, a technical integration program manager. This guy's bright. I'll tell you, he has a weekly blog, and it comes out of you go to his website. It's
buildingautomationmonthly.com.
Right, and he also has a well, let's just start. I just want to get this background. Phil, hang in there, baby. But he's out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He has a master's degree in cybersecurity. He has several other Suffix is after his name, IT, LEED, and Energy Manager Certification. Phil, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Phil.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here.
Well, buddy, I tell you what, first of all, we've got to get some ground rules right now, because, you fly solo, you're awesome. And I have to have a co-host. So Kenny's mine. You cannot have him. Okay. Can we agree upon that?
That's fair.
Because I cannot roll without Kenny. But hey, Phil, listen, Kenny gave a great introduction of you, but let's just start. How did you get in the controls business? What was sort of your background before controls, and what got you in the business? And sort of walk us through that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure thing. So ever since I was little, I've always had a attraction to technology. I would play video games, and this was back when the internet was super slow, so I tried to figure out these ways to make my internet faster. Then I kind of fell away from that and went into the military right after September 11th happened, wanted to serve my country. So I got out of college, went and was in the military for 5 years, got married, had a kid, and got out, and there wasn't much that I could do. I was a weapons specialist in the military. And coming out, I was offered 3 jobs. One was working at a glass factory. The other was working at a soap factory. And the third was being a building automation programmer. Now, I had put on my resume that I had done some HVAC work, which in reality, what that was me changing some filters around the ship. Mm-hmm. But I might have embellished a little. So I get this interview. I go on Wikipedia and I read everything I can about HVAC so I can pass the interview. I get through. Somehow they hire me. The second week on the job, they say, go program this central plant. I don't know if this is like a plant like the picture on your wall there or what the heck this is. So I go in there. I'm trying to figure things out. This carrier chillers, and you guys have heard short cycling chillers before. It's like boom, boom.
Yeah.
And mechanics are looking at me, and I didn't know you had to open the isolation valves. And so,
man,
yeah, it was bad. I probably took a couple of years off of that chiller's life, but so the 2008 hit. I got let go. It scared the crap out of me. I called every Allerton dealer in the country. Got a job in Chicago. And from that point forward, I said, I'm never, ever going to be at a point where I am dispensable to a company. So I decided I'm going to become indispensable. I'm going to learn everything I can. And I became almost obsessive compulsive about learning everything. So I started learning systems integration. I got picked up by Johnson, and 2008, there wasn't a lot of work going around, right? 2008,
right.
2009.
Right.
So I figured out if I could find other folks' old stuff, like old Stafa gear stuff, old DSC 8500s, which are an older Johnson controls, and if I could figure out how to modernize those and create a value prop around that I could create work for myself. And so kind of created a name around systems integration, fell into this cybersecurity thing, and one thing led to another, and now I started teaching myself, and I teach by writing, and I teach by teaching other folks. And so that led to the blog, and I was kind of half-hearted about it until the past year where I don't know, something clicked in me that I really started taking it to the next level. And that's my story in a nutshell, essentially.
Well, that's very, very cool. So tell our people, and again, the blog is Building Automation Monthly. So tell our viewers a little bit, and I think your tagline is "You will learn something, or you will be educated." Right?
Yeah.
So for in a nutshell, what is the thrust, if you will, of the website?
Yeah. So the thrust of the website initially it was very much following my ADD pattern of thinking, which was, that's bright and shiny. I'm going to write about that. Oh, that sounds cool. But now I've developed an audience, and this audience has started communicating what they want. And so what I do is, based on what they say they're needing, I go and I unpack these topics. Like right now, I'm going through how to evaluate building automation systems. So it seems like everyone's touting something, and it's hard to determine what it is. So I talk through how to create RFP language in this series for different capabilities on a building automation system. and then how to evaluate the responses. I am very strict on myself about keeping the blog vendor neutral. That's why you very rarely will see me talk about a specific controls product. I do have a post about Tritium, but that's more about the platform of Tritium, not so much about Viacon or different FX, etc. So the point of the site is to educate folks deeply into how to operate, how to maintain, how to design, and how to integrate building automation and smart building systems.
Very, very cool. And the website is buildingautomationmonthly.com. You can also follow Phil on Twitter at PhilGzito.com. Don't put a .com on Twitter. Listen to me. I'm messing up here. Kenny, I know you're chomping at the bit with a question for Phil. Hit it.
Well, I first of all, like I say, Phil, I've probably been following you for 2 years because when I Google things and I see different things, you always pop up. And I know your concept is you'll leave educated. So anytime, to me, and we've worked with different people, Ken St. Clair, for instance, we have so much information out there that some of it now has become, you need a filter so you get past all the chaff and get to the wheat. And I have to just let everybody know that if you come to your site, this is the no nonsense, granular post that this guy actually can do it. See, some of the people, and I might be guilty of that myself, is I'm a sales engineer, so I know enough. I have the certifications or whatever, but I don't have the deep dive, hands-on. I can understand code, I can write code, because I can't. So what I do is I go to your site or I go to a similar site and I watch from the person that really understands the granularity of Niagara and understands, like, I would like to go right to some of the things that you've done in terms of telling people about cybersecurity, because you're a cybersecurity expert. And this is one of the most incredible trends that we face. We need defensive tactics to get to every organization around the world, and everybody's responsible. So just tell us about one of the posts you did about the IBM folks.
Yeah, so that's something that came across. I run Google alerts for a couple different keywords. So if your audience hasn't heard of that before, that's something I would recommend. And essentially, you go into Google and you type in the keywords that you want to get notified when information around that pops up, and then Google will go and crawl. Usually it's results from the first or second page, but it'll give you, a weekly digest. And so I saw the IBM hack pop up, and they mentioned stations, and immediately when you hear stations, that's code for Tritium. So I knew that Billy Rios had done an exploit where he went into a Tritium chase and was able, basically there's this concept called reverse engineering where when a program is created, it is what's called compiled. And that means that all the raw code is put into an executable. And the theory is that you can't get to the raw code. Well, what he was able to do was basically decompile that raw code of Tritium and find some vulnerabilities. And then those same vulnerabilities were used in that IBM hack, although with a different twist, because they took advantage of a local, I think it was a Linksys or D-Link router that had the default username and password on it.
Yeah, D-Link, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
so was able to unpack that.
Well, there's an example, Eric, how Phil takes us into a deep dive, and it's very understandable. So appreciate the work. Phil, what do you have on what's next? I mean, you got so much going on. I'm on your website right now, and I'm looking at the building automation. You have a book coming out is what I'm getting at. Tell us about the book and how people can participate.
Sure, definitely. So based on what I've heard from the audience is that there's a lot of information out there around building automation, but there's not this kind of primer level course. And what the book's intent is to be at a managerial level. So folks who are managing projects, folks who are managing other technicians, to really prime them around HVAC, building automation, IT, and smart building systems. That's the first part. And then from there, I dive into the three other parts, which are operational knowledge, how to operate building automation systems and facility groups and things of that nature, how to go and do construction projects. And then the third part fourth part is around analytics, IoT, and smart buildings and integration. Now, the really unique approach I took on this was that I've seen a lot of stuff written that was written, I would say, in a vacuum. And so what I wanted to do was for the audience who follows me and gives me encouragement, because this is the first time I've ever done anything monetary with Building Automation Monthly. And so for this audience, what I want to do is give them 70% off the book and then a private Facebook group and give them the rough drafts of the chapters as they're written and then get their feedback on the rough drafts as they're written. So the book is actually written for the audience and not just me thinking I know what they need to learn. And so then once that's done, then it all gets consolidated into a full final book, and then that will get published out.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it is really, really great. And listen, there's a special on the book right now, I think, too. So if you have any interest in this at all, which I think you should, Phil, how do they order the books or sort of get the early bird discount, if you will?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. You could go to the site, and I've kind of got it hidden. And what it is buildingautomationmonthly.com/bambook.html. And I'll give you that link so you can add it to the show notes.
Perfect.
But also, any of the groups I'm in, the Facebook, the LinkedIn group, I have posts that talk about that. And I also have, for any of my subscribers, I notify them, basically every other week about it.
Very cool. Well, listen, I want to get to some cool stuff. So tell me about the podcast. What got you into the podcast? And then I got to ask you about your gear for sure. But talk about podcasting and your gear.
So 2 things got me into the podcast. One was the Control Talk Now podcast.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yes. Like I said, it truly is an honor. I was talking to my wife and I was like, I'm so excited. I'm on Control Talk Now. And she's like, you're such a dork. I was like, hey, you don't get it. These 2 guys are the pioneers of learning in the building automation space. But so that, and then I really got focused into this kind of passive income world. And I was reading some stuff by Pat Flynn with Smart Passive Income and a couple other things. And everyone seemed to point to a podcast. And I've been told that I talk a lot. So I said, hey, that's kind of cool. What if I talked a lot on a podcast? So I went and one of my greatest strengths is I'm fearless, sometimes to a fault. And I emailed or messaged everyone I could find on LinkedIn that had anything I think my audience would want to hear about. So like the guy who runs the Security Operations Center for NASA, sent him a message. Guy who is overseeing the development of standards for remote access for IoT, sent him a message. So it was like, hey, what's the worst they could say? And got a bunch of replies and folks said, yeah, that sounds great. So my focus was, whereas you guys focus on the news and educating folks around trends, which you're really good at, I figured my focus would be around taking subject matter experts and diving deep into specific topics in a way that basically taking the questions I hear customers and I hear my audience asking and unpacking those.
No, it's brilliant, and it's so well done. I mean, it really is well done. All right, walk me through. Now, our podcast listeners obviously can't see this, but our video cast listeners can. Walk me through what mic you got there. I see you got the, what are we talking here, equipment-wise?
I wish I could say it's something as fancy as yours. I can see yours, and I recall which one that is. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
It's a Heil PR40, which...
It's a nice mic.
Oh, it is. Well, you mentioned Pat Flynn. He's a guy that I studied, and if anybody's aspiring to do a podcast, he does some good YouTube stuff. And then...
Yeah, that's where I recognize that from.
Yeah, and Cliff Ravenstein, right? Or yes. the podcast answer man's another guy. But what are you rocking with there, dude?
Well, it's a $29 Ahuhu mic.
Sounds great.
It's been a lot of tweaking of Audacity and tweaking of settings. And then I got a $10 pop filter,
yep.
a $10 mic arm. And it's working.
Well, I think that's one of the great things about podcasting is you don't have to necessarily invest a lot of money in the equipment unless you're doing more than one person at the same time. And I mean, just doing one other person is pretty, very affordable. But boy, you add that second person in on the same time, and it gets rough.
Yeah,
you got to buy a mixer then.
I don't think your audience can appreciate, unless they've done it themselves, how much work you guys have to put in to just having you and Kenny at the same time. and another guest.
Yeah. Well, buddy, I love your podcast. I've listened to it and will continue to. And can they subscribe to that in iTunes or Stitcher? Or how do they subscribe to it? Yeah.
iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, RSS feed. It's all there on the site.
And listen, when you subscribe to it, which is a great thing to do, definitely give Phil like a 5-star rating, write a comment. That just helps it get moved up the chain a little bit. So even if you don't subscribe, just, type it in, go in there and give him a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, we'd appreciate it too, because I think we're hitting we're almost up to 200 episodes now, and it's hard to even find us in iTunes now. But so that's important, and I think it's important because I want to shift gears right now too, Phil, because here you are, an engineer, develop really great products, and the other thing that you're really savvy on is the use of social media, and Kenny and I did a whole series on using social media and the HVAC and building automation controls about 2 years ago, and so. If you got a second, walk us sort of through your philosophy on that, because there's so many choices. You mentioned two you're using Facebook and LinkedIn. Walk us through sort of your decision to focus on those, and are there other things you focus on as well?
So I'd like to say I'm savvy, but my wife told me to use Facebook 3 years ago, and I just started a group about a year ago. So I guess the first thing, listen to your wife who knows more about social media than you do.
Yes.
That really helps. But
that's a good first rule.
As far as what I do from an approach, first things first is building an audience. So you guys, I know you, Eric, you have like 17,000 on Twitter, and Kenny, I think you've got like 13,000 if I remember. So Twitter is a great place to start first. And really it's about giving information. So if you go, and what I like to do, and I've been horrible at this, but I know how to do it. Implementing is the key, which I'm not good at that with Twitter. But if you create a list of those Google alerts and you start retweeting that out to your audience, you'll start to build a followership. Eric does a really good job of this. I watch what comes across the wire on his Twitter feed. So that's a low touch, low risk. You set that up in a software called Hootsuite. And that's free for up to 4 different social media accounts.
Yep.
And you can schedule all that. So you do that. That's step one. You build that audience, and then you build a blog or a website, which you'd be surprised how many contractors out there don't have websites.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shocking. Some big name contractors don't have websites.
Well, listen, I want to cycle back around, because for our Twitter, and Hootsuite is what I use. It's really a cool program. And sort of the way you build followers is interesting, because I think it's indicative of the networked economy now. And, there are different rules for the networked economy. And one of them is based on what we call the law of reciprocality. You do, and one of my teachers said, you go first and try to do something for somebody else. And then human nature is they'll reciprocate, right? Mm-hmm. So, a great strategy for building a Twitter audience is you can go in and you can search for smart buildings or whatever domain you want to be in, and you can find people that are doing those tweets. And so I make it a habit, hopefully every day, of trying to retweet 3 or 4 things that other people that I don't even know are in the space, right? And so I learn a lot from that, as you do too, obviously, because you can just find all kinds of great articles. But then typically what happens with that is if you follow them or even retweet something of theirs, they typically will follow you and they will retweet stuff of yours. Yep. And so I think that's really how you build the Twitter audience. And I think the other side of that is in the networked economy, it's all about sharing and it's all about integrity. So Hootsuite's a great thing. Twitter's a great thing. And now let's cycle into Facebook, because we've been on Facebook for a while, but we met Josh Bradshaw, a real social media savvy guy out at Realcomm Imicon, and Josh always uses his Facebook. It's kind of, I don't know if you saw it or not, Phil. He uses an iPhone. He's got a little thing that splits it. He puts the lapel mic on you. He holds the lapel mic. His whole deal was it 3 minutes, Kenny, or 4 minutes?
Tries to keep it under 3 minutes.
Under 3 minutes, and it instantaneously goes right to Facebook. Yep. And he's built a huge audience with. That's the only place he goes with it is Facebook.
Yeah, so Facebook is the next step, and really it's a different beast. So each one of these social medias, and you guys, we were talking before about Gary Vaynerchuk, and he writes a really good book around social media where he talks about each of the different platforms and how you have to deliver and communicate differently on each platform. So Facebook, folks are coming in there expecting to have a conversation. Their barriers are typically down because they look at it as a personal site. So really, right there, it's about storytelling. Whereas Twitter, to your point, is about communicating information and using that law of reciprocity. Whereas storytelling and engagement and tribe building is really what Facebook's all about. So what I try to do there, when I post my content, and I read about this guy called the Gary Halpern letters, and he was this amazing copywriter. And I read about it in a book called The Ask Method, which is about how to poll your audience. And so this Gary guy, he's no longer with us, but he put all of his 25 years of newsletter copy on. And you can read through how this guy engages his audience. Well, what I'm trying to do now more with Facebook is storytelling and engaging the audience through that and getting them to basically engage in the story with our common story and common theme being smart building education, and then stories around our experiences. So I'm doing a tip of the day, where every day I put a tip based on my experience. I do a discussion of the week. And then when I post my articles to Facebook, it's more in a story format than when I post in LinkedIn. It's more of in a news format.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. That is awesome. Well, we're getting ready to, and I've already recorded a couple of episodes. I just haven't edited them yet, Phil, but we'll get your opinion on this. We're getting ready to do another podcast. We're probably going to call it Control Trends People. Mm-hmm. And maybe Facebook's the way to go with this, but it's essentially sort of what they were doing before controls. So like, if we do one with you, we would start with where you are right now, but then we would start with, well, tell us about when you were a kid and sort of your story about sort of how you evolved, who your influences were and stuff like that. And it's interesting. We've done 3 or 4 of them, and it's just fascinating, the stories that people have to tell in our industry. I mean, it's just amazing because we never really get a chance unless you know somebody personally to sort of know their in-depth story. And I've been sort of amazed at how, the people just really open up and just really how interesting people are. They all have sort of different stories and different influences and sort of how they wound up in our industry and stuff like that. So we'd love to get you on that and get your story sometime of your, sort of like behind, but before they were a controls rock star sort of thing.
Well, hey, Phil, too, and the reason why, too, is we also have the Control Trends Awards, and just put this in perspective. So as Eric said that, we reverse engineer somebody like yours and you gave us a big insight to your, you came out of the Navy and you had three opportunities, and the one you went with, you went on a whim. But imagine if we were able to coax younger people and steer them and direct them in through these novel, anecdotes and how a lot of the life is serendipity. It's just you didn't have a plan. It happened. Now you're looking at how you got back. See, because what we have to do as an industry, and you hit on it already. I don't know if it was in the part of the podcast. Is we're having trouble collecting, attracting, training people to be our replacements. We have a critical shortage. There was an amazing white paper out about just how short it's becoming. In the year 2022, about 6 years from now, we are going to lose 60% of the expertise of our industry. And I think Eric's point was that the more we know about people, the more personable they are, the more the tribe building you talk about, the greater chance we're going to attract more young talent. Mm-hmm.
So well said, Kenny.
Well, because I think Phil's right on top of that too.
Oh, I think, no, Phil, you're a breath of fresh air, dude. The other one I wanted to ask you about is, have you ever used Google Hangouts before?
Yeah, so I'm on the fence about that, and here's what I've been thinking. So you mentioned about the live recording that gentleman's doing when you guys were at IBCon. I've been considering waffling, rather, between Google Hangouts and Facebook Live. Yeah. And what I've been thinking is, because Hangouts has a limitation, I believe, whereas Live, I think, is unlimited as long as you're streaming through the Facebook platform.
I think you're right about that. Hangouts works really well, and Kenny and I'm going to solicit you here for something, because a couple of years ago we were trying to get a handle on sort of social media. So we would do a Control Trends Hangout. We want to do them once a month, where we would essentially, it'd be like a guy like you, me and Kenny, and then we would try to get somebody from social media, like there's so many of them now but somebody kind of famous in social media, and we would try to, but it was specifically about how to use social media in building automation, HVAC controls. And so maybe an integrator or somebody that had a Facebook page was using that, maybe somebody like Denise Wakefield, somebody like that, and bring them on. But then the thing that is cool about Google Hangouts, that I think it really makes it really work well, is you can send that out to everybody. So we could have 4 or 5 panelists having our dialogue, but you could have millions watching it. And then I can use my streaming software to record it. So now it's archivable, so you can redo that. But I think we might have been a little early for the industry with that. But I don't know. What do you think? Would that be an idea to maybe bring that up? And if so, would you want to be part of that?
So it's interesting you say you think we may have been a little bit early to the industry. I would challenge that. I don't know if our podcasts and our video casts are necessarily early to the industry, or if we are not reaching the right people because we are focused on people like ourselves, and people like ourselves maybe aren't interested in digesting that way. But the folks, like I have this guy, Ishmael, I can't remember his last name, but he is all over social media. He's always sending me stuff. And he's like working with Docker, which is doing containerized virtual machines. He's doing all this cool stuff, and he's on social media all over the place. And I've got other folks who are on social media all over the place, but they're younger guys, and that's where they live. But honestly, I mean, I'm only 35, or how old am I? 34. But I even feel old. Yeah. And I'm like, my wife talks about Instagram and Snapchat and all that stuff, and I don't go there, but there's folks who go there, and I don't know if maybe we're not reaching them there, or maybe we are early. I'm not sure on that.
Well, I think the timing's right now, because I think at first people were just getting a Twitter account or something or a Facebook page because they were told they're supposed to, and I don't think anybody really know how to use those tools, which is what Kenny and I were trying to figure out and help our audience figure out, by bringing the experts on and sort of having the panel conversations. So it's interesting stuff. And then, so listen, Phil, we could go on forever. So needless to say, we want to have you back on for sure. But I'd like to sort of finish, our first interview with you sort of 2 questions. First of all, what changes have you seen? Let's talk technology-wise, building automation controls, since you've gotten in industry. And then the final question would be, looking out 5 years, how do you see it changing?
So the first change I've seen is that the barrier of entry to the building automation space has gotten massively lower. When you're seeing companies like Comfy engage, when you're seeing companies like Lucid engage, and these companies that their revenue points are drops in a bucket compared to a Siemens, Honeywell, or Johnson Controls, yet they're impacting and building a following in the industry, that signifies that while we haven't crossed the chasm, if you look at the whole Crossing the Chasm book, but it's showing that we're getting enough of these. I look at it as like Johnson Controls and Honeywell and all, they're like carriers, right? I'm using a Navy analogy here. And then these smaller companies, they're like the fleet of destroyers and cruisers and submarines, that this carrier was all out on the ocean by itself steering around. And now these ships are coming around, and that wake is going to carry our industry forward, whereas we haven't seen that in the past. So a company like a Honeywell, a Johnson Controls, a Siemens, they have multi-year development cycles. Whereas right now, a company like Comfy, they can turn stuff around super fast. So we're going to see a lot more innovation coming out of the industry because of that.
Very cool.
As far as 5 years from now, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see both a consolidation of the current building automation protocols, but you're also going to see chaos around IT protocols being brought into the fold. And you're really going to see, it's almost like when pneumatics and DDC went kind of at each other. You're going to see DDC and IoT going at each other, where folks are going to be forced to become conversational programmers, meaning they don't need to be able to write code, but they need to be able to talk to the people who write code and talk in IT terms. And we're also going to see a lot more IT folks becoming involved in the actual building automation space. So I think those are the two big trends. And if folks aren't trained for that, they're going to find themselves kind of stuck like when the pneumatics switched to DDC.
Very well said, Phil. Kenny, any final questions for?
No, I just kind of wrap it up and just again, the Building Automation Monthly. Phil is a growing entity in this, in our media, social media, as it's directed towards building automation. He has over 4,000 followers and growing. I see his posts every day, and I enjoy them. They're short snippets. They're always on topic. They're always factual, and he's a very reliable source. So we welcome all our Control Trends viewers to please, embrace Phil and his work. And Phil, we're looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to, and sorry for just throwing this out there, but I'd like to leave your audience with one thing. If they want to go in the comments on your videocast on controlstrends.org, right?
Or .com or org will get you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
If they want to go there and go under this session, and they want to go under the comments and leave a comment and ask a question around IT or systems integration for the next 2 weeks, I'll come in and answer those periodically. And then Ken and Eric can pick the best question, and that person will get a free copy of my book.
Awesome. Phil, that's very generous. Well, listen, I've got to ask you one more question because our video casters can see that you got a lot of books back there. I think our podcasters can sort of hear that you're a very, very well-read guy. I think you're just very current. So what is the one book, if you're in the smart buildings business, or just outside of yours, because yours is obviously the book, but what's one book? It doesn't necessarily have to be from our industry. What's the book that has the most impact on you over the last couple of months, and what would be your must-read book?
Geez, that is I could go so many places, but based on what I've heard from folks, I would go, quite honestly, I would pick up any Network Plus book.
Network Plus?
I know that it's not, there's some really good books that have come out by Sinopoly and this other architectural guy. But really, I think folks have enough understanding of the smart building space now. I think what they need to understand is how IT systems operate so that they can communicate with folks around these smart buildings. So picking up a Network Plus book or picking up a Network Fundamentals book would really help them understand how networks work and how their systems communicate. It would answer your questions around cybersecurity. And when they go to talk to IT folks or they go to evaluate proposals, they would really understand what a on-site versus off-site database means, or what a local versus wide area network means. And that's going to become really important really fast.
Boy, Phil, great advice there. Our guest has been Phil Zito. You can follow him on Twitter at Phil G. Zito. And the publication is buildingautomationmonthly.com. Be sure to check that out. Subscribe to the podcast. And Phil, man, hopefully this can be the first of many, many interviews with you on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings Videocast and Podcast.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Hey, man, Kenny, I tell you what, that was something else. Phil Zito, man, what a cool guy. Can't wait to get, a little bit more going from him and understanding more from him. So
what a great guy, huh? What a smart guy.
Very extremely smart guy. And please go to his website and check his post out, man. He does a great job. Cool guy. And Kenny, that brings us, I think, to our final post of the week. So what are we going to end with? I think we've got an old friend that's back in the fold here.
Oh, Mr. Fred Gordy from Intelligent Buildings. I'll tell you what, Fred is he's a giver, and he's a very, very smart guy. And he also volunteers a lot of his time. He hosts and he helps to continuously upgrade and educate the world in cybersecurity. And this is a post basically that Doug Wiley will be speaking at the ICS Systems meeting that'll be held at Strongquist location, Atlanta, Georgia. You'll have to give us the 411 on the location and time on that. But basically, they're going to cover two major, cyber events, ICS attacks. And one was the German steel mill in 2014, and the second one was the Ukrainian power grid in December of 2015. So these are short presentations that will highlight how these two notable industrial cybersecurity attacks led directly to the disruption, physical damage, and destruction of real-world industrial control systems, which is that's the ICS stands for Industrial Control Systems. I should have said that first.
So, Kenny, I got a question for you. Is that you with the picture of the black sort of face mask on? Is that you there that Fred used, or is that somebody else?
I'll tell you no, but I haven't seen one of those outfits there since Grand Forks, North Dakota. That was standard mask wear for the
when you guys were doing the drills and stuff like that?
No, for January's weather. I mean, that's just they were green and black, and they have little inserts so that when that snow's blowing, the hawk, they call it, coming down from those Alberta Clippers. You know, so actually, I have one of those. So when you said that, it was funny.
Well, maybe you should come down to the meetup and wear it, man.
I don't think I have. I tell you what, it has the black hats and white hats, but that's that's an interesting presentation illustration because Eric, that's the scary stuff right there. Right there is where if you start messing around with those massive utilities and shutting down power and messing around with the grid, that's getting real serious. So I'm glad Fred's making this opportunity available. And,
well, he is, Kenny. I want to speak a little bit about it because Fred is, he's sort of the anchor point or one of the main anchor points in our industries regarding cybersecurity. But Fred reaches out. One of the things that makes Fred such a valuable resource for our community is he is talking to everybody about this. So he's a member of the cybersecurity group. That's a national cybersecurity group, meaning they have different meetup sessions across the country. They're going to do this one at Stromquist and Company August 8th at 6:30. So if you're in the Atlanta area or near, definitely would love to have you come by for this. Now, what we're going to endeavor to do, kind of like what we did with Jeff Haupt, is we're going to live stream this bad boy. So so we will have the details on that, but it'll be August 8th at 6:30 p.m. And I think we're going to have a lot more of these. Fred's vision is connecting all these different cybersecurity sort of champions, if you will, together in such a way that we can get more information out in a better format. So we can definitely check that piece out. But, hey, man, it's great to have Fred back in the fold. He's with intelligentbuildings.com. Now, we mentioned Tom Shurtleff earlier. And so Intelligent Buildings is behind a lot of great stuff, and so is Fred Gordy. So we'll probably even get him on maybe on the show between now and August 8th, but definitely mark your calendar for August 8th. Kick back, we'll live stream it, have a couple of beers, and meet a whole new set of guys and girls that are out there trying to make the world safe from cyber attacks.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right, big dog, man, you got big plans the rest of the day?
There are things going on. There's a wedding going on. There's, we've got picnics and stuff. I don't know if the weather's going to cooperate with them, but what about you?
Well, dude, I woke up with a raging case of gout, but my old tango partner that I used to dance tango with, Tracy Miller, is getting married this evening. And so she's awesome, but we could do magic. I couldn't dance well with a lot of people, but I could just dance great with. So I got to try and get the foot in shape because I'm either going to give the bride away or I'm going to dance with her. Because after this thing goes on, they're having a big tango dance. So I'm hoping to get my tango shoes out later tonight and sort of cut a tango rug, so to speak. So, hey, but dude, with that, I tell you what, I think we got to call it a wrap this week. A special thanks to our sponsors this week, EasyIO and Neptronics. If you want to sponsor one of these shows, the only way you can do it is becoming a platinum sponsor of the Control Trends Awards. That will get you a banner ad on the Control Trends website that goes for 12 months. It'll also get you between 10 and 20 tickets, premium tickets for the Control Trends Awards event. Which is the Sunday night before the AHR show. And it also gets you mentions on some of the Smart Buildings podcast and video casts, which our audience continues to grow on both. Also, a special thanks to our guest this week, Ken Sinclair, automatedbuildings.com. Be sure to check the July issue out at automatedbuildings.com. And Phil Zito, our new friend, buildingautomationmonthly.com. Check him out. We really appreciate the chance to talk to him this week. And Kenny, with that, I'm sort of out of breath. Anything you want to say before we do the outro?
That might have been the single biggest wrap up you've ever done, and best. I mean, you didn't take a breath, and you hit everything. You didn't forget anything. It was amazing. Nicely
I might
done.
have to have some different outro music though, because our outro music is like 10 seconds, and I think it went on for about a minute and a half. So I might have to get In-A-Gadda DaVita playing it as the outro music. But hey, buddy, why don't we just do this? Hey, man.
Okay.
To our listeners out there, thanks a lot. Have a great week. Remember, be bold, stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. And that's a wrap.
All righty, man. That's perfect time because they're knocking at the door.